Hello, friends and fellow seekers of the good, true, beautiful. It's Mike here, and this is a novel update. So, today I am really excited to share with you a tour of the map of the Pearlsong Refounding universe, the world where everything takes place in the stories. Uh, this is a total geek out thing that people who love fantasy love to do, and I'm excited to share with you this work. I'm trying to figure out as I do this, like how many spoilers this might involve. So I'm going to do my best to avoid all spoilers, or at least any major spoilers, as I walk through the literal territory of the land as we walk through this. And I'm doing this on my laptop so that I can share the map here and then walk through it with you. So bear with me as I kind of work through some of the technical stuff around that. But I just want to walk through it with you and share with you the amazing landscapes where the story takes place and some of the big key landmarks and some of the reasons why the land is the way that it is. And this is the world that our protagonist, our main character, Gideon, finds himself in as the story begins and throughout the events of the four different novels in the tetralogy. So let me go ahead and share the actual um, map with you, and I'm going to get rid of this little bit up here so that we can see it fully. And there you go. So this is the map of the lands. Again, this work in the real life was done by Alastair Parkin, and his work has just been so amazing with the work that he's done here. And as I go through this, I'm going to share with you some special hidden Easter eggs that he's included in this map. For those of you that will be reading the novels, this will be really fun for you to know about. And I'm going to tell you some about the history of the lands too, as we go through the different landscapes that you see here. And careful for spoilers, some minor spoilers as we go through this, because just looking at this map will tell you some of the story that Gideon himself will be discovering as he goes through the story. None of this will be major spoilers, so don't worry about that, but it will be some of the things that Gideon will not know as he comes into the landscape, because of course he's from our world and does not know anything about this land. So I'll begin with a spoiler that is not in the books at all. That is the name of this world. And it is that this world that he's in does have a name. It is nowhere named in the actual tetralogy, but it does have a name, and that name is Sacravelis. That's the name of the world in which all of this takes place. There was never an occasion where it was needed to be named, and so Gideon never asked about that, and it never came up. So, but Sacravelis is the name of the actual world, and this map is of a part of that world that's called the Inherited Lands, and and I'll just begin by noting the obvious major feature that's here, which is this massive rift that you see happening that's just literally slicing the land in two. This is just called the Gorge, and or the Black Gorge. And what this was, the land was not always this way. There was a time long before Gideon shows up on the scene where the land was whole. It was not split in this way, but there was a cataclysmic event that happened about 2,000 years before Gideon ever appears in the story, that literally severed the land in two, that broke the land as you see it here. I've always just really been enchanted by Robert Jordan's series, The Eye of the World, and the whole series of books that he wrote around that, and Brandon Sanderson finished toward the end, and just the idea of the breaking of the world, and that whole notion. I wanted to pay homage to in this story as well, because it's such a beautiful metaphor for, I think, just all of our lives. I think there's in some way that all of us have experienced the breaking of our world and what that looks like, what that feels like. And I wanted that to be represented here in the story of the inherited lands. And so it's represented here in this cataclysmic event that happened 2,000 years ago. You'll learn about that in the story about what exactly happened. But when it happened, it literally broke the land in two. It severed it in this way and created this gorge where the Eastern Sea and the Silent Sound filled in. So this is a very deep gorge that goes down many hundreds of feet and is filled in with waters that have become toxic and spoiled. And as you can kind of tell from the map, everything to the east of that has been a kind of desolation has occurred in this space, and that's why it is called the Deathland Barrens. And the Deathland Barrens, this entire section of this landscape has been spoiled in some ways. You see that happening in many other, it's an homage to many other fantasy novels where you have the spoiled lands, the blight, some kind of landscape that has been blighted or destroyed in some way. And this is my unique take on what that is. And so that you'll find out in the story, it's not just like what you might find in other fantasy novels, but it is a kind of despoiled or broken landscape that you will get to explore in the course of the books, and includes lots of features as you can see: Wormwood River, Stolen Hills, Fallen Wood, the Deathland Barrens in general. And of course, there is this place up here that I won't say much about, where there is a green spot, Travail Plains, and this little spot called Rama that comes into the story as well. But yeah, this event happened 2,000 years before Gideon ever shows up, that broke the land in two. Now, before this event occurred, this entire piece of the landscape was a fertile, productive land that was in many ways the breadbasket for the world itself, for Sacravelis. And so at that point, the inherited lands were a powerful resource for all the other nations, all the other peoples that inhabit this world, to provide food for them, to provide resources for them. It was a very rich world. And after this happened, there was, of course, a great famine that occurred. That's not referred to directly in the story, but you do get hints of it through much of the story, especially our when our people come into Chara Soundin, and maybe a little bit when they come into Karsi Sound. And these places here, Calmaran, Chara, Karsi, Songwill, are called Soundins. They are the local vernacular for a village or a town. And the reason that they're called Soundins is because in this land, there is the magic of this land is basically encapsulated or encased or in a literal language of power. If you think about there being in our world, if there were a language, like say it was French or Swahili, that happened to be imbued with magical power. The language itself would be the thing that had the magic in it. And so if that were the case, then there would be an entire culture that was built around the who had access to that language, who could speak that language, who could not speak it, and those who could speak that language, what kind of power they would wield in the world, who would rule, who would be the elite, who would not, and the process or the actual act of speaking would become quite central to a culture and to how things operated. And so you find that reflected in all aspects of the life in the inherited lands, right down to the names of their villages, which are called soundings, because of the way that sound is so critical to how life operates in the land. So, By the time we come into the story, this is 2,000 years after the breaking of the world, after the what they call Gideon's fall, and there's a lot of things that are broken now in the world. 2,000 years after the severing of the landscape, and the effects of that have been cumulative and progressive over time. So you end up with a landscape that is both beautiful in the sense that it still holds a lot of the glory of its origins, but has also been infected by and affected by the severing and the brokenness that has occurred within it. And so as we come into the story, you see signs of both of these things that happen all over the place. And there's also a great deal of mystery around what is happening in these places. And some of those might include um, this area here, the Scolding Wind Hills, which our intrepid companions, our travelers in the story, come upon fairly early. And many places in these landscapes are what the story refers to as worded. And what that means is that at some point in the past, the language of power was used in that space in a way that changed it, that altered the landscape and imbued it with some kind of a mystical power. And Scolding Wind Hills is just one example of that. And in some cases, you don't know right off the bat whether that wording was meant for good or for ill. You don't quite know what it is. In some cases, it's clear. In some cases, it's not. But throughout the narrative, our our travelers and our primary character Gideon encounters different landscapes that are worded in different ways and has to they all have to deal with the impact of this and the effect of that to try to navigate it and don't always know why things are the way they are. Another example of that is this massive storm that you see that's just kind of takes over this massive section of the inherited lands, and it's called the Dune Run Hope. And the it so happens that in this world, deserts are called hopes. And so this is literally a desert that has been created by this storm. The storm has been there for hundreds of years, and it stays in place and never goes away. And so they you will our travelers will have to deal with that. There's another big desert that's up here called the Arid Hope, and I won't say any more about that. But yeah, so our travelers in the story will have a chance to see and travel through almost all of these major locations within the landscape. And we have just a combination of, the Soundings, of course. You have the Scolding Wind Hills, Castellan Watch, within the land here. The large forests are called watches, and usually they're called watches because of a particular tree that exists in these forests called the Bayanar tree. And the Bayanar tree is something akin to our redwood tree, but much bigger and of a different it's a different species, but it is large, and it has many particular qualities, some of them medicinal, some of them are also mystical. And so forests that are rich or full of these Bionar trees are often called watches. So you see the Castellan watch is one of those, and there's another one up here that is also full of Bionar. It is now called Strivenwood. It used to be called something else that was, I think it was called Silverbore Watch. And the reason the name was changed to Shrivenwood is again because something happened there that changed that because of a wording, because something was spoken in that space that shifted something, and eventually the names were changed. Um, and so yeah, we have this epic journey happening where where Gideon and his crew will be traveling through a lot of these landscapes, heading up and around. I won't reveal kind of where all they go, but I love the way that they're able to that the artist Alastair Parkin is able to sort of capture so many of the different landscapes and even the rivers that flow through that we will have a chance to visit, and to also capture some of the mysteries that are there. Now, one of the places that you'll see here that's different from all the others is this this place called Folinar, and Folinar is not, you can tell the icon is different from all the other places. Folinar is not a sound, and it's the one major city within the Inherited Lands, because the Inherited Lands has always historically been a almost more of a feudal system. Not exactly that, but kind of leaning toward that system where every different soundin and its territory had particular functions within the larger society, and they were complementary to one another, and they worked in a synergistic way, in a symbiotic way with all the other soundings. But Falinar, because of some events that happened hundreds of years before the events of the story began, Falinar became a seat of power and grew into an actual large city and became the primary seat of power for the entire inherited lands. And this is where much of the action will take place for within the story. Um, to the left over here, you see the Barrier Mountains, and there are a couple of soundings that are perched over here. Some kind of in the mountains, some more toward the shoreline. Agatheron, Macroth are over there, and you'll also see a few places that have interesting kind of different names, like Noble Heart. And Noble Heart, you'll see, has a different icon from the Soundins. Noble Heart is not a Soundin, and Sacred Heart also, as you see tucked away up here, not a Soundin. And I won't say more about that, but it is something else, and that you'll get to explore as you go through there. Then there's Morguin Soundin, which is stuck up here. And then there are some of the mysteries that you'll will encounter on the story. I already pointed to the Travail Plains. There's also a mystery here in the hinterland, which is up in this on the northern shores of the Silent Sound. And then as you go up into all these islands, there's a small island called Ador, which also will be featured in the story. And then the Ronthan Plateau is a big plays a big role in the story. It's quite a mystery that will be unfolded over time. The Heaven Range, of course, refers to this entire mountain complex that is this has this sort of three prongs to it, going east, west, and north, south, and they join with one another. And of course, Wordhaven is right in here. This map within the story within the chronicles of the story was created within this location of Wordhaven, and so that's why Wordhaven is actually on the map. In many case, in most of the landscapes, in most of the territories within the inherited lands, the location of Wordhaven is actually not known. But you, as the reader, will get to know where Wordhaven is because it does feature pretty prominently in the actual story. One other sound and I'll mention here is Valoran, which is tucked away up here along the shore in these mountains, right on the edge of the Heaven Range. That will also come into play quite a lot. And yeah, and then this big mountain, Sital Rafa, which is up here, will also play in quite a bit. In some ways, like nothing is actually wasted within within this, and so we'll go many different places within this landscape. There'll only be a few places actually that you won't get to explore, and I love that. I mean, it's one of the most fun things for me about fantasy novels is the world building and creating these interesting landscapes to explore and the magic that happens within them, the mystical histories of them, and the peoples that inhabit them. So you'll find too, as you go through the different landscapes that we'll encounter, that the people of each sound in have their own flavor, have their own culture, have their own way of being. I really drew a lot from the cultures and the history of the UK and the British Isles and Ireland and that whole region which is fairly compact geographically and yet has such distinct cultural identities that all live in fairly close proximity to one another and use that as a template of sorts for uh, creating the different dialects and the slight different flavors of culture that exist within the various soundings that are here. And again, this comes from the fact that historically these different sound-ins and their territories were all very symbiotic in their relationship with one another. They were like city-states in a lot of ways, in the ways that they interacted with one another. And so when we find them in the story, they have been under the rule of one oppressive dictator. It's an oligarchy dictatorship for hundreds of years, but have been, some of them have been fighting hard to maintain their unique identity under that oppressive thumb. Others of the Soundins have given way to and given over their identity to their overlords, and you'll see how that plays out as well. I wanted to point out to you just a few things within the actual map itself that are really cool. Um, One, these lions that you see here on either side of the top corners do play in heavily. They're symbolic of a feature that you'll find in the story. I won't give it away, but they're when you get there, you'll know. If you know, you know. When you get to the right part of the story, and I love the way that Alastair created this, the lion's mane coming down to form a scroll. And if you go really tight in, you can see that there is lettering on the scroll. And within the story, I mentioned to you that there's a language of power. There's a language that actually has power and has imbued magical power within it. And this text that you see on either one of these scrolls is actual. This Alistair created an entire alphabet for us for this language of power. So these are actual letters, original lettering for that language. And this language is called Delo in the actual books. And this is an actual quote from Delo. And I won't tell you what the quote says. That's just another Easter egg for you to find. But it's very cool that it's literally there's Delo written on the map. And for those of you that really want to study that, there might be a way to figure out what it actually says. Um, and then there's some other things that are cool. I mean, down here at the bottom, you can see this staff that plays an incredibly important role in the story from pretty early on. And I'll say no more about that. And then up here at the top, there are a few Easter eggs that I will name. This place right here, up in this picture, is a location that within the story is often um, colloquially referred to as the stand. So when you come to that, you may want to flip back and just say, oh, here's the stand. This is what it looks like. And that's really cool. And here's a blink and you miss it one. In fact, you can't even really tell it because of the pixelization here. But this is the profile of the top of a head of a mountain dragon. And mountain dragons do show up in the story, and they show up in a way that's really cool, I think, as the story progresses. And I love the way the mountain dragons actually got created in the story, how they showed up, and what I learned about them as they showed up in the story. And I think you will too. Um, and then this little guy right here is a little piece of a thing that in the story is called the memorial wall. And you will come upon that as well in the story. It plays a large feature in the story, and that would be pretty cool to see. And then finally, this little, let's see if I can get in there. This little piece right over here. There is a ship. In fact, this is the same ship that you see on the cover of Waymaker. the book Waymaker, the second book in the series. This is the Endurant. And so that is a beautiful inclusion that Alistair made within the map itself. And yeah, so this is the map of the inherited lands where the story takes place. There are so many bits and bobs of narrative that happen all the way through this, and wish maybe I'll do another video in about a year and just do a massive spoilery tour of this and talk about all the different wordings and what they all mean and where they all come from. But for now, I just wanted to give you a an overview of the map and just geek out over it with you and share my excitement over the map and how beautifully it's rendered and how excited I am to invite all of you into this landscape for the adventure that Gideon and his compatriots will go on through the four books of the story. So that's really it. I'm excited to share all this with you and really want to invite you to just dive in if you haven't yet to dive in to Gideon's Dawn, to Waymaker, to the Song that Shatters, and to the Word that Prevails, and to share your thoughts. You know, there's many places to do that. Of course, I'm always asking for reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. That's the lifeblood of the series, and so any reviews are helpful. There's also a place on my website that up at the top, the pearlsongrefounding.com, up at the top, you see a link that says share your story. And what I'm finding is many people are talking with me about how the story's impacted them and what they're getting out of the narrative itself that's beyond just enjoyment, which is great. I mean, if it was just that, that's great. But they're also getting a lot of personal benefit out of it, and they're sharing that story with me. And I'd love to share those stories with you. And so on that page, there's an opportunity for you to send me a note to tell me what's going on or what's happening for you in ways that you're being encouraged or challenged, or you're even finding some measure of healing or restoration for yourself as you read the story of Gideon and his compatriots as they go through their adventure. I'd love to hear that. And if you're willing for me to share it with others, I'll put it on the site. And I'm sure it'd be an encouragement for others. So that's my update for you this week. And I am excited about where things are and where they're going. And just so thankful for all of you who've been reading the books and for especially those of you who have posted reviews. It's been wonderful to read. It is, as I'm going to keep saying, the lifeblood of the books. So please do leave a review. It's very helpful for getting the word out to other people and to new people for these books. So thanks very much. I hope you have a terrific week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a good one, guys.